Well, hello and welcome to the Chronic Pain Experience podcast. I am your host, Dina Chopolis. There is a lot of overlap between chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and long haul syndrome. The lived experience can be a complicated mix of both the physical and the emotional. From feelings of confusion when you know something is wrong, but the tests just aren't showing anything, to being discouraged with the lack of clear guidance, frustration with the loss of function, and likely the worst of all, feeling hopeless after hearing the words, "There is nothing more we can do." So find a quiet space, get comfortable, because we're going to explore all of this and so much more with our very, very special guest, Dr. Teitelbaum. Dr. T is one of the most frequently quoted integrative pain and fibromyalgia medical authorities in the world. He is the author of 10 books, one of which is the best-selling From Fatigue to Fantastic. He is the lead author of 8 studies on effective treatment for fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. Dr. Teitelbaum, has appeared on Good Morning America, The Dr. Oz Show, Oprah and Friends, CNN, and Fox News Health. Dr. Teitelbaum, thank you so very much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
And it's awesome being here with you and with the viewers today, because those of you out there have been there, done that. Dina will talk a little bit about what a nice doctor like me is doing in a field like this. But, being on the other side of the white coat's an eye-opener. Pain is optional. Virtually all pain can be effectively treated. The problem is that physicians are simply not trained in pain management. And when your doctor tells you, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you," tell them, "Thank you for being honest."
Yes.
And go find somebody who can get pain relief for you.
Right.
We'll teach you what's going on and how to get pain free. That's why I'm here today.
Well, that's the end of our podcast. That's the most important message right there. That is the best way to start, is with a sense of hope, right? I think that's, if anything, that's probably our biggest purpose here, is to offer that sense of hope. So
There's
tell us.
Good reason for it.
For good reason. Yeah. And that's why I'm just, I think it's important that these conversations are happening and that people are starting to hear the message. I know you're doing a ton of work around not just your research, but getting this message out there. Really, truly. And it's a big job. So I'm excited that you're sharing the message with us. So I know you have a really interesting story to tell. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how kind of you got here and what your backstory is?
Well, when I was in medical school, and medical school was the easiest part of my life. I was probably the third youngest in a class of 300. Had paid my way through college because my dad was dead. So I finished college in about 2.5, 3 years, and was working to pay my way through college. And med school, the same thing. And then all of that was easy. It's the hours and the rest. But there was my family background. My mom was in Auschwitz. Most of my family died in the concentration camps. I tend to be pretty empathic, and growing up in that kind of a setting was challenging.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake of getting caught up in being the peacemaker in a family meltdown and battle, which was a mistake. I should have just said no and stepped out of it. But that set me up for being on the ropes in terms of my energy levels. And I got what they called the drop dead flu. It was a nasty viral infection, and it just didn't go away. I mean, it's weeks later, they figured, it was clear there was a virus. They couldn't identify it, but the tests were overt for a viral infection. They figured, well, he's not better. He must be med student depression, something like that.
Right.
And I just couldn't function. And I couldn't work, which meant I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't pay for school. I had to drop out, and I was homeless, sleeping in parks. And my professors are good. They're good people. In fact, where I went was probably one of the most advanced in pain management. It's just not in chronic fatigue syndrome yet. And it was funny. It's as if the universe put a holistic homeless medical school sign on my park bench, where I would sleep at night and the rest. Naturopaths. I'm a med student. I didn't even know there was such a thing as naturopaths. People who did energy work came by. Herbalists, all kinds of different holistic practitioners. And each of them, sometimes they had pizza and I ate, and each of them taught me bits and pieces of what I needed to learn to recover. And so I was able to go back to med school, which I didn't even know was a possibility. So a year
Mhm.
later, back in med school, getting my honors in medicine, um, and was just in my medical practice, I was finding that people were starting to fly into town to see me, which is kind of odd for internal medicine practice.
Mhm.
And they pretty much all would have a bottle of water in their hand that they put on my desk.
Yeah.
And I would say, when I saw the what I called the bottle of water sign, it says, "Let me ask you, tired, but with insomnia, widespread pain,
Yeah. Yeah.
brain fog." And they say, "Did my wife rat me out or my husband?" It was like, you know, but I started to put together all these things
Yeah.
that bits and pieces, and suddenly I was finding people getting pain-free. Their fibromyalgia, they don't have that name yet,
Yeah.
but it's going away. People were flying in from all over the country to see me, and I
Yeah.
was all impressed with myself. I was probably 30 years old, had figured all this stuff out. And one of my patients, because I lived in a kind of a mixed rural small town community,
Yeah.
came in and said, "Hey doc," it's the guy's a farmer, and said, "Have you seen this?" He pulled out this book. It was a two big thing called the Trigger Point Manual by
Mhm.
Dr. Janet Travell.
Mhm.
She had figured all this out while I was in diapers in terms of how to get people pain free by treating the root causes.
Right.
And she was, White House physician for Presidents Kennedy and Johnson. She was a professor of medicine at George Washington University.
Mhm.
But there was one big problem.
Mhm.
Her treatment approach was dirt cheap.
Aha.
It got buried, not
Right.
buried, ignored.
Right. Put aside. Yeah.
Ignored with a little edge of, it's
Yeah.
kind of like we have a kitty cat. There was another
Yeah.
kitty cat that was really was like kind of,
Right.
and our kitty cat was a quiet one, and we had the big kitty cat,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the pharmaceutical industry
Ah, yes.
and everybody and surgical medical products. Those two are like the big cats, and
Yeah.
everything else, it's first it's ignored,
Mm-hmm.
then it's belittled,
Mm-hmm.
then it's attacked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the usual game plan. So you'll
Yes.
see. Um, I don't even get into the whole COVID thing because that's become so politicized.
Right.
But what I found in 50 years was how long I've been in medicine now,
Mm-hmm.
is that anything that is not highly profitable, which means
Yes.
patentable,
Yes.
will be either what I just said, ignored, then
Right.
belittled, then attacked.
Yes, absolutely. I
And, and
worked.
that's
Oh,
and
I'm
that's what's
sorry. Go
happened
ahead.
with pain. And that's what's happened with the treatments for pain. Pain is
Right.
very, very, very treatable
Right.
unless you
Right.
go to your physician.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. I actually worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 10 years, and that's part of my path to get where I am here. So it's really
Hmm.
refreshing to hear your
Yep.
perspective on that.
And
Absolutely.
and you've noticed they are all sweet people. They hire
Yeah.
cheerleaders and people who socially are. I mean, I've had great friends and mentors that are in
Yeah.
the industry.
Sure.
They are good, wonderful, loving people, but their
Yes.
job is profits.
Yes.
And it's a very much cheerleader thing where
Yes.
if you say, well, maybe the toxicity of there's no such thing. Hey, professor, the one we paid you $200,000, is our
Yes.
medicine toxic? Oh no.
Right. Right. Right.
And somebody said, but and they probably find a way being edged out the door is
Mhm.
my guess. You would know better than I do. But it's like groups of people in cheerleading systems. Yes, our product, help the people, help the king to get ching, ka-ching, ka-ching,
Yeah. Yeah.
protect them from quacks. Anything that's competition,
Exactly. The alternative method. So alternative to
yes.
what, right? Why are we calling it alternative? No, absolutely.
Because it's cheap and it's not patentable.
Right.
That's why
Yes.
it's alternative.
And I honestly believe that we have been not been set up for success just as far as we are in our society. We are so used to the quick fix. And unfortunately, a lot of this takes a little bit of work, right? A little bit of patience and a little bit of guidance. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, I just want to share 3 reasons why I'm really excited to have you here, other than all of the knowledge, just to give people some more context, is that um, I really love your passion, and I share that same passion for informing our chronic pain community on all the things that they're not being taught, not being addressed, and necessarily not the treatment approaches that are necessary with our current medical model. I love that you weave together both the biomedical and the integrative approach to treatment. And I love that you're moving away from the sort of them versus us dialect, because we have enough of that, right? We need to start working together. Absolutely. And I know you have doing some great things that way too. And I'm also a fan of the work you are doing to change the narrative of those words, those dreaded words. There's nothing we can do, right? So I think that's probably where this is all starting from. So how are you changing the narrative of we can't do this? There's nothing we can do.
Like I said, there's nothing you can do, but there's
Hmm.
plenty that other people find somebody who can. And the thing is that there are four main components, as we had talked about before the show,
Hmm.
of healing.
Right.
And what medicine looks at is one, the biochemistry, but
Mhm.
only pharmaceuticals. And as soon as it becomes not patentable, it's kind of like,
Uh-huh.
it goes off patent, it's cheap. We'll still use it if there's a big over-the-counter market, like things like ibuprofen. There's still a lot of money in that,
Right.
acetaminophen. But otherwise, you'll find that they tend to get shoved aside. Anything that's cheap, in other words, of anything natural. So one part is the biochemical. There's the biophysics, which is the
Hmm.
energy medicine. We'll see that used in MRI machines, things like
Hmm.
that, but
Hmm.
also in things like acupuncture and a host of other modalities. I remember, and they used to call me the ghost in medical school because at 2, 3 in the morning, I'd be in the medical library. I was used to being up late at night. That's how I could get everything done I did.
Right.
And I would usually take a journal from 100 years ago, 20
Mm.
years ago, and the current one. And I'd go through it just for perspective. And there's all this amazing research being done by the person my neurology text was named after,
Hmm.
and using metal plates to treat multiple sclerosis blindness.
Ah,
He would make it go away. All of that stopped. I could see suddenly it
yeah.
just all stopped. It was about the time the pharmaceutical industry, biophysics is largely suppressed in this country.
Yes.
It's important in the Eastern world where they can't afford medications. Then
Right.
there's structural, like acupuncture, other things,
Hmm.
massage, and then there's mind body.
Uh-huh.
So we'll go into these components.
Okay, so let's start with the biophysical. So things that obviously we know that system pretty well because that's what we lean into as a society. The scans, the protocol, the surgery, anything else that we might be missing, sort of that you see as being impactful on the biophysical side for pain.
Okay, so what you noted, we talked about the toolkit,
Hmm.
and you talked about the medications and
Hmm.
surgery. So
Yep.
those parts are biophysical and structural.
Yep.
Okay, so you have those two things. Now there's the other 100 things.
Right. Right. It's a lot.
So,
Absolutely.
let's step back for just a moment, Tina,
Okay.
and make a simple thing.
Sure.
Pain is not an outside invader. It's not like an infection or it's not like
Right.
an injury.
Yeah.
It basically is your body's way of saying something needs attention. It's
Right.
kind of like the oil light on your car's dashboard, the warning lights.
Yeah.
So if your oil light is flashing
Hmm.
and say it gets more and more flashy the lower the oil goes,
Right.
you go to your doctor. What the doctor says is, well, we'll put a band-aid on that light.
Uh-huh.
And say the band-aid falls off, and well, we'll just cut the light out.
Right.
We'll snip the wires,
Yeah.
and then later on your motor burns out,
Hmm.
and they don't associate it. It's
Right.
I would note ibuprofen medications, that whole family called NSAIDs. You won't read in the papers, but there's 50,000 preventable U.S. deaths a year caused by that family of medications.
Wow.
This is from two massive meta-analyses, about 1 million people in the British Medical Journal.
Right.
And you won't hear those numbers anywhere because they're major advertisers. Now,
Yeah.
again, let me say right now, if you're taking ibuprofen and arthritis medicines and they're helping,
Yeah.
the medicines are much less toxic than the pain.
Right.
Use them. It's
Right.
okay.
Right. Time
Um,
and a place, right? Hmm.
yes, but we'll talk about alternatives.
Yes.
But you don't, if you say, well, I'm going to not use these medications and be in
Yeah.
pain,
Yeah.
you're a fool.
Right.
Take them, use them.
Right. And I also
Let's get
agree
to
too that I
otherwise.
sorry to interrupt your thoughts there. I do believe it's really important for people to understand that, if they're looking to sort of shift that chronic pain experience, that they're going to need to rely on those medications. There's a lot to learn about in that process to help, recovery. And the medications absolutely play a role in
And
that.
and the thing is, medications are a wonderful tool in the
Yeah,
toolkit. I'm an MD. I wouldn't want to
exactly.
give up my hammer,
Yeah.
but I don't want to only use a hammer. I want to use a
Right.
screwdriver, the wrench, the pliers, all the rest.
That's
What we're
right.
going to teach you about is that there are more tools in the toolkit than hammers.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of
Okay.
toolkits. And part of
Yep.
that is your understanding of pain, right? The more you understand about pain and understanding that it's an alarm system and it's a helpful system is really key.
Exactly. So once you know that the oil light is going on, what alternative is there to smashing it or put a band-aid? It's like, put oil in the car.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Give your body what it's asking for. So you
Yeah,
ask, what other
right,
uh, biochemical things in addition to the medications are there?
right.
Okay, number one. So example for those of you with migraines.
Yes.
Did you know that taking vitamin B2, riboflavin, 400 milligrams a day,
Mm-hmm.
and magnesium, 200
Mm-hmm.
milligrams a day, will decrease migraine frequency by about 75% after
Ah,
6 weeks of use?
yes.
Because it impacts the vessel, it impacts a lot of things, but it improves energy production in the blood vessels,
Beautiful.
which is critical. So you can simply do that. Are
Yeah.
you going to hear about that? Even though the American Academy of Neurology
Yeah.
shockingly
Yeah.
put those in kind of the small print and things you can do for migraines.
Right.
It shocked me they actually had it in there because the
Yeah.
research were there. Most medical societies, unless there's somebody on their a drug company paying their board, they
Yes.
have no
Yes.
voice. The
Yes.
medications have no voice. So
Yeah.
most medical uh, the consensus statements, the what
Mm-hmm.
the medical policy
Mm-hmm.
is actually basically written by the drug companies
For sure.
because their people
Yeah.
get seats on the different societies based on how
Mm-hmm.
much they pay.
Right.
So,
Right. That
so
was one thing that made me sad about, and I know we're not going to get into the whole COVID thing, but that they just weren't telling us, what else can we do? I mean, if all you do is
everything cheap got slammed and
exactly.
with
So
massive
anyway,
amounts of misinformation.
yeah,
And I am not Republican or conservative,
yeah,
or
same,
I'm
yeah,
just a scientist.
yeah,
And I look at the data and
yeah,
then I look at what's being said. They're not a match.
exactly. So
Different
anyway,
topic.
I think
So
it's a good example. Yep.
So going back to
Yes.
what else can we do in the
Yep.
biochemical toolkit? So we have
Yep.
medications, not bad.
Yep.
And if you have neuropathy, for example, my
Right.
book, and I can send you a chapter from my book. I don't tell my publisher, but
Okay.
for those of you with neuropathy, you can email me and
Okay.
ask for the neuropathy chapter. It'll have over a dozen medications, including topical compounded creams,
Hmm.
um, that and the sequence to try them in for
Right.
the neuropathic pain. But we're also going to add in lipoic acid,
Hmm.
200 milligrams 3 times a day or 300 twice a day, acetyl L-carnitine, 1,000
Mm-hmm.
milligrams twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
The nutrients, magnesium, B vitamins, but keeping vitamin B6 under 50 milligrams a day
Okay.
because more is not always better.
Yep.
Um, so these things have also been shown to help neuropathic pain. So for
Mm.
those of you with nerve pain, most of you're just going to get Lyrica or Cymbalta and maybe
Right.
Sabella, and
Yeah.
maybe a little Elavil if your doctor's more conscious.
Yeah.
But the even Dilantin, certainly the whole host of the anti-epileptic drugs, there are countless medications that can help, and sometimes you just need to try on the shoes,
Right.
and there's a nice order to do them in. But you add the other components to the toolkit, and the nerve pain goes away.
Right.
There's a free phone app I have. It's called Cures A to Z,
Okay.
Cures, capital A dash C. There's a $2 upgrade. I know we're going to rattle off a lot of information.
Yep.
And like I say, you can email me for, the free handouts and pages on it. But the Cures A to Z app, you look up neuropathy, it'll just all be there. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
the quick, short and
Great.
sweet version will
Perfect.
be there. There's
Okay.
a $2 upgrade. Yeah, humor me. Thank you for the $2. Okay, but
Yeah.
the free app has 70-80% of the information.
Okay.
So the um, so neuropathic pain
Hmm.
is one example. There's 7 main kinds of pain, and it goes
Yeah.
even further than that. So
Yeah.
that would be one example of giving your body what it needs
Yeah.
because it helps heal the different components of the nerves,
Hmm.
while then suppressing the rapid firing. By the way, nerve pain is an energy crisis, just like muscle pain is. We'll talk
Hmm.
about that as we go forward, but
Okay.
it's a different form of energy. There's a pacemaker in the nerve that tells it to fire,
Okay.
and that pacemaker is suppressed until it needs to fire.
Mm.
And then the suppression releases. If there's not enough energy to suppress it, that nerve is constantly firing.
Ah.
And that's what you'll see with neuropathy. So restoring energy production
Yeah.
so that that pacemaker can be fired when it needs to and not constantly.
Right. Not in that
Just like in
hyper.
diabetes, low energy getting into the cells because of it,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
the nerves. So understanding what's going on
Right.
gives mechanisms for relief. In pharmaceuticals, it gives mechanisms for creating chemicals never before seen on the planet because those are patentable.
Right.
Anything, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important to understand when your doctor says nothing I can do.
Yeah.
It just means there's no new chemical they found yet that is exceedingly expensive and patentable.
Yes. Well
And
done.
anything that the research shows and study after study after study shows is helpful,
Yeah. Yeah.
pseudoscience, quackery.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
definition of that is cheap.
Yes.
not profitable.
Right. It's so true. Oh my gosh.
And
There's so many.
these are all good people. I've never met I in 50
Right.
years of medicine, I haven't met a bad person out there.
Oh, sure. They
They
all
are
go into
all
it for the right reasons. And
they're
absolutely.
they're all good people.
It's more the system than anything. It's not the people. It's the
It's
system.
a rotten system full of good people.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, yeah, we're not here to bash it. No, not at all.
Well, the big thing with the structural is the majority of pain,
Hmm.
even if you have neuropathic pain, other pain, post-stroke, whatever it happens to be, CRPS,
Yeah.
is myofascial, has a
Hmm.
muscle and fascia component,
Yes.
which means tight muscles, which means low energy in that area.
Right.
If you restore energy, which
Hmm.
can be by putting mechanical energy in by stretching
Hmm.
the muscle, if you stretch the muscle, it's released.
Right.
And unless there's something to make it go back down again, like low energy, poor ergonomics, you're
Yeah.
sitting at your computer like this with the
Yes.
shoulders hanging in the air.
Yes.
That muscle is released and will stay released. And
Right.
that's why some surgery sometimes works is this cuts through the muscles.
Right. Right. And layers of it. And I think it's an
You didn't
important.
necessarily need the new hip.
No, that's true. I think it's a really important distinction that you're making between, the myofascial as far as a stretch. It's also tied into the emotions, of course. So by the body's natural response, right, to stress, to pain, to all the emotions tied into it is that tightness. And that's one of my favorite tools actually is just rolling around on a ball, manipulating those tissues. And it's easily done at home. So
Yeah, you have Theracanes, which have a little tennis
yes,
ball on the end. You've
I
got
have
these
two.
little pinchers that have two
Yes.
tennis balls on each side where you can get your
Yes.
own neck trigger points. Anything that puts energy, because you're
Right.
wondering, well, why is it that some doctors will use an infrared lamp on the
Yes.
pain area?
Yeah.
Others will stick a needle in and turn it. Others
Yeah.
will massage it.
Right.
All of these things make the pain go away
Yeah.
because, again, muscle pain
Yeah.
is low energy in the muscles.
Yeah.
It takes more energy. This is a key point. It takes
Hmm.
more energy for a muscle to relax
Hmm.
than to contract.
Right.
That's
Hence why
counter.
your magnesium too, right? Which is your,
It's
suggesting
a
as well.
key energy.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, that's counterintuitive
Hmm.
until you realize, okay, when I go for a heavy workout, back remember when you used to be able to do that. Um, and you wouldn't come home and say, honey, my muscles are all loose and limp. You say they're all tight.
Right.
Low energy causes the muscles to get shortened and
Yeah.
get stuck in the shortened position.
Absolutely.
All of those things I mentioned, you put a needle in and turn it, you
Yeah.
create a current, electrical current. That's
Hmm.
energy. You massage it, that's piezoelectric and alpha
Yeah.
mechanical energy that you're
Right.
putting in.
Right.
Um, Anything that stretches muscles.
Right.
But here's the key take home point. Another one
Hmm.
is if you find you release the muscles, you go to chiropractor, massage, whatever, and it feels so much better for an hour or two, and then 3 days later it's like hurting again,
Right.
then look for the causes
Yeah.
of the low energy, whether it's a physical thing like you're not having proper ergonomics by your sitting station, whether you carry your wallet in your back pocket that's pressing on it,
Right.
or low energy. And we'll talk about that next, which is
Yes.
how to restore energy production so those muscles can all release.
Yes, beautiful. I think the awareness piece is really important as far as their understanding, taking a step back and saying, okay, what is it that's really creating this issue? And we'll talk about that in mind body. I know. Okay, shall we move on to mind body?
Well, let's take a look at the energy component and
Okay. Okay.
fibromyalgia
I'm
as a
so
model.
excited. I'm ahead of myself.
We will get to the because again, for most people, if you had told me when I was homeless on the park, well,
Yeah.
this all had to do with the stress that you went through when you're growing up, I would have
Yeah.
strangled you. You know,
Ah,
so what I would much prefer is the way that I went through is just to learn about the adrenal issues and the infectious issues and
yeah.
nutritional issues,
Yeah.
and then get myself better, and then understand
Right.
how what I went through contributed to
Right. Right.
that.
Makes sense because it's a process. It's such a process. So
Yes.
well done.
So
Okay.
let's look at fibromyalgia as one model of pain.
Sounds
It's a
good.
nice model because it includes all seven of the
Hmm.
key types of pain. It has a muscle pain, it has a neuropathic pain.
Yeah.
It can have allodynia. It can have the headaches, migraines. It can have the gut pain from
Yes.
infections. All these different kind of pains that are going on. So it's a good model.
Hmm.
Um, and what our randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled published research showed
Hmm.
is that 90% of people, 91% of people improve with an average 90% increase in quality of life
Hmm.
if you restore energy production with what we call the SHINE protocol.
Hmm.
And that's optimizing sleep, Yes, you can, for those of you out there with a disease, you can get 8 hours sleep. I know it seems impossible,
Yeah.
but my book talks about how, and it's all in there.
Yeah.
H is hormones. You will have hormonal deficiency, thyroid, adrenal,
Yes.
reproductive,
Yes.
even though the tests are normal.
Yep. Yep.
I, infections, dozens of
Mm-hmm.
infections. COVID is just the most recent one
Mm.
that triggers the disease, but Lyme disease, Candida overgrowth,
Yes. Yes.
Epstein-Barr, there are dozens of infections,
Yes.
and many of those still need to be addressed. They're active.
Right.
Hypotension under the H for those with orthostatic intolerance.
Yeah.
Um, and, and then, so the I is nutritional support,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good way to begin because for most of you,
Mm-hmm.
with most kinds of pain, the nutritional support can be very helpful. And
Mm-hmm.
then exercise as able. And you know well enough, I'm not telling you, go out there and go on a march because you'll be bedridden for 3 days.
That is not going to make them motivated. No.
But if you're afraid to even walk to the mailbox,
Yeah.
because you had post-exertional malaise and left you bedridden,
Yes.
you're going to decondition, and that's not good either.
Exactly.
So a little bit of walking in the sunshine if you can get out of the house to do so.
Yep.
For the sickest ones. And,
right.
We'll talk about, there's different treatments for those of you who are house and bed bound. Treatments like the low-dose naltrexone, the low-dose Abilify, and these are both medications, but they're cheap.
Yeah.
This is research out of Stanford and 3 other studies on the other ones. In addition to countless other treatments, you can get healthy even if you're bedbound.
Right. Right. Oh, that's amazing. So I think I just want to explore a little bit if we can. I'm really intrigued with just the impact that, coming out of COVID, obviously, but just the power that a viral infection has over pain, fibro, chronic fatigue. So can we spend a little bit of time just for those who may not be aware, deciphering between chronic fatigue and fibro, sort of the root cause might be?
Why do infections trigger this disease? What does one have to do with the other?
Yes.
So we talk about fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome being an energy crisis, where the energy goes so low that it trips a circuit breaker. It's an almond-sized circuit breaker in the brain called the hypothalamus. That circuit controls sleep, which is why you can't sleep even though you're exhausted. That paradox tells you you've got this process. It controls your hormone system, and it controls the blood pressure, pulse, gut, and sweating. So that's all in this circuit. And this circuit uses more energy than any other circuit for its size in the body. So when energy goes down, it goes off first, goes into hibernation mode. And once you see, and then the muscles don't have energy, they go tight and you hurt all over.
Right.
Okay? And then the process cascades, central sensitization, brain, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But this is the underlying dynamic. Yeah. So to go ahead and optimize energy with Shine helps that. So how, many things trip that circuit breaker. Stress can do it. Hormonal efficiency can do it. But infections.
Yes.
About a half of people with CFS and fibromyalgia, it's not just virus. It's any of literally dozens of infections. What happens is that the body, in trying to fight certain kinds of infections, some infections try to hijack your energy-making machinery called mitochondria to use to reproduce.
Right.
And what your body does is it has mechanisms for shutting down energy production to try to starve out the infection.
Okay.
And that works really well when it's able to turn it back on a week later. But in so many cases these days, and that's a whole nother show to go through why we're getting more prone to that these days.
Right.
But if you're on the edge of the energy cliff, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
It's enough where normally if you're out in the level ground, it would push you and you stumble and you'd be fine. But if you're just on the edge of a cliff energetically because life is insane, this should be over, you're done.
Doesn't take much. Yeah. No, that's for sure.
So these infections, then the body doesn't turn energy production back on and people get stuck.
Right.
So you need to turn the energy production back on.
Right.
And that's what the Shine protocol does.
Right. Okay, fantastic. And I think that's brings home a really important point around how impactful nutrition is. A lot of people won't even go there because they believe, how is what I eat actually going to help things? But just right from the hypothalamus down to your mitochondria.
If you're looking at energy production, what you eat, unless you're able to live on light, where else are you going to get energy except from what you eat? And the American diet has lost half of the vitamins and minerals
Yes.
All the calories are still there.
Yep.
But 18% of our diet is now sugar, 18% white flour.
Hmm.
Those are basically devoid. You say, white flour is enriched.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Why?
marketing. It's like a pickpocket came and
Yeah.
stole $100 out of your wallet, took all your money, took
Yeah.
$100.
Yeah.
And the police came by and went, give them back $1. And they
Yes,
said, I am
exactly.
going to
Oh,
enrich
good.
you. Here's $1. And they walk up with the other 99 nutritionally.
Yeah.
So the white flour, and then with food processing, literally half of the vitamins and minerals are gone,
Hmm.
which means this is the first time in human history that
Yes.
people are malnourished and obese at the same time. But
Bravo. Yeah.
still, the medical institution is, I'm sorry, I keep coming back to this, but
Hmm.
it's just, where does our information come from?
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
basically slick advertising masquerading as science.
Right.
And anything cheap is attacked.
Yeah.
Nutrition is attacked.
Yeah.
Multivitamins. Well, now you're just making expensive urine. It goes in one end, out the other.
Yes.
And what I recommend for the people who are telling you that is tell them, stop drinking water.
Right.
In fact, make it quicker. Stop breathing.
Mm.
Goes in, goes out.
There you
You know,
go.
it's what it does along the way that
Yes.
will make a
Yes.
big difference between whether you stay in chronic pain or not, as
Right.
well as so many other things. So a good multivitamin, I would start
Yes.
with. High
Okay.
in B vitamins, high in magnesium.
Yeah.
All of the nutrients are critical by definition, but
Yeah.
for pain especially, B
Yeah.
vitamins at about 50 milligrams
Yeah.
and magnesium. And two, for what I take myself as a powder that I designed, my royalties go to charity.
Hmm.
I don't take money from any other companies.
Right.
There's one exception, Recovery Factors,
Hmm.
which we may or may not talk about today.
Hmm.
But the energy revitalization system,
Hmm.
it's a vitamin powder. One drink replaces 50 pills a day.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
So I would start with that energy revitalization system.
Okay.
If you don't like drinks, because the powder makes a drink,
Yep.
Clinical Essentials is a
Okay.
very good pill form
Right.
multivitamin. So
Yeah.
start with that. It'll have the magnesium, the B vitamins.
Right.
There'll be literally 50 nutrients. When I say it would take 50 pills to get what's in one drink,
All right.
I'll give you a challenge. Try doing it in less than that. If you can, most people will take 70.
Wow.
You won't be able to.
Wow. Okay.
So simple way to give solid nutritional support.
Yeah.
Cut down sugar. Doesn't mean you
Yes.
can't have any chocolate as a health food, but
Yes.
in moderation.
Yeah.
Go for quality, not
Yeah.
quantity. And most of you need to increase your salt intake unless you have heart failure.
Right.
Hypertension being excess salt is a myth.
You're
It's
right.
a,
Ah, yes. I wanted to get onto
it's
the salt. That's
it's
fantastic.
low potassium and
Yeah.
low magnesium and vitamin D, but mostly low potassium
Right.
that drives the hypertension. If
Mm.
you totally salt restrict from being a salt glutton like me
Hmm.
to the most intolerably low level of salt,
Hmm.
your blood pressure will go down
Right.
1.5 millimeters,
Right.
one
Right.
point. So
Yeah.
from 158 to 157. It's like
Right.
18.
Ooh.
It's not worth it.
Right.
So anyway, so the basic nutrition. You
Okay.
can start with that. There's
Okay.
many other things that can be helpful. Um, for those of you with fibromyalgia, we just published a study on a special form of ginseng called HRG,
Hmm.
80 red ginseng. Get the chewable tablets that not only increased energy and stamina on the order of
Hmm.
70%.
Okay.
60% of people benefited. Those who benefited, it was about a 70% increase in stamina, about 60% increase in energy.
Mm.
Pain went down a lot.
Aha. Okay.
Okay. So a couple simple things to begin with.
Yeah.
Smart energy system,
Fantastic.
another mix that would be, uh, those three are what I start people on.
Okay.
Smart
And
energy system and HRG 80 red ginseng and energy revitalization system. A lot of people find their pain improves quite a bit,
right.
even just with those.
So I love the fact that this is something that people can do on their own, sort of have the control over on themselves. I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that it's a cost-effective option as well, because I think people start to get a little panicky in their
It's,
head,
it's about
thinking,
it's about $1 a day
"See,
because you can
yes,
do a low dose. You can do half a scoop of the powder
right,
once, and all of those things together, it would be one drink and 3 pills in the morning.
great." It's
And
not an
it's
expense.
it's not expensive.
No,
You can, because the lower doses, if I'm
yeah,
doing the HRG 80 red ginseng, if I have a busy day, I take half a pill.
yeah, Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's all it
Right.
takes.
I do know that I have a couple of people who are really intrigued to know more about just sort of your approach around chronic fatigue with long COVID.
Okay, so
Yeah.
long COVID is simply one more form of chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia
Okay.
triggered by an infection.
Okay.
Now, in addition to treating the CFS and fibromyalgia with Shine,
Yeah.
um, you'll find most of the research is funny. The research spending went from 12 million a year for fibromyalgia to
Mhm.
1.25 billion for long COVID over a 4-year period. So you're going to see a lot of stuff being pushed. You'll
Yeah.
find most of it will be new, expensive, patentable
Treatments.
pills,
Yes. Yes.
which will take about 10 to 15 years
Okay.
before they reach you.
Hmm.
With the
Hmm.
exception, there's this cadre of physicians who have found low dose naltrexone.
Hmm.
And naltrexone is medicine used to block morphine. So you
Right.
can't use it if you're on chronic narcotics.
Okay.
But taken at bedtime for 2 months, not the regular dose of 200 milligrams, but 3 to 4.5 milligrams,
Okay.
dramatically, it resets the immune system.
Ah,
And after about 2 months, the effect on pain, especially for those of you with CRPS or fibromyalgia,
yeah.
pain can go way down, but it takes 2 months. It can mess with your sleep in the beginning.
Okay.
But for those of you with long COVID, email me at
Okay. Okay.
fatiguedoc@gmail.com.
Hmm.
If you have CFS, fibro, long COVID,
Okay.
post-Lyme,
Yeah.
and I'll send you the information sheet on it. It's
Okay.
4,000 words. It'll go step by step. Dum, 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 dum.
Perfect.
But the thing is, for those of you, long COVID is a horrible name
Yeah.
because it's any symptom that persists.
Hmm.
It's as
Hmm.
if I had car crash disease,
Yeah.
and it could be skull fractures, it could be
Yeah.
concussions, it could be broken legs, and they're all the same thing and put in the same
Right.
studies. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, so if you're having persistent shortness of breath, ask for the shortness of breath information sheet for the long
Right.
COVID. If you're having heart disease,
Yes.
where you had myocarditis, look up heart disease in the Cures A to Z app. It'll tell you how to optimize energy
Okay.
production.
Good.
If you have the lung, shock lung,
Hmm.
in general, post-COVID, Curamed,
Yeah.
Curamed is a highly absorbed curcumin,
Yeah.
glutathione, like clinical glutathione,
Good.
that will
Okay.
shut down the inflammation and free radical stuff that's persisting. Because
Yes.
these are like a fire, they have to be put out, otherwise they keep going.
Yeah.
Um, but the easiest thing is just email me for
Okay.
those information sheets and I'll send them.
Okay. Now, if we could just kind of touch on, since we're really getting specific, when we talk about chronic pain, we talk about hypersensitivity. Obviously, we talked about sort of energy systems as well. What other work are you doing with hypersensitivity, or what are you seeing some success rates around reducing
Well,
that?
hypersensitivity is a very broad kind of a thing.
True.
Are you talking about allodynia, which is sensitive to touch? Which at that point you're looking at NMDA receptor antagonists like ketamine.
Okay.
Ketamine for chronic pain, including fibromyalgia and the depression.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's probably the most effective NMDA. It's a hallucinogen in terms of
Yes.
its effect.
Yes.
It's like taking LSD or mushrooms or something. So there's a little bit of a yeah
Yes. Stigma.
challenge with it.
Yeah.
Um, The main challenge, though, is that it's given IV for $1,000 a dose every 2 to 3 weeks, and your insurance will not cover. Or
Right.
if you have the depression, buy a nose spray, which is $800 a dose.
Okay.
But here's the thing: it's available from compounding pharmacists for about $2 a dose
Really?
in a nose spray. Yes, that people can do once their doctor guides them through it, and they need to find a
Yeah.
doctor who does that.
Yeah.
So this is, if you're looking at, God, I wish I could do that, but the
Yeah.
economics.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
available from compounding pharmacies. So find a pain specialist who uses the IV ketamine. They'll want to charge you the $1,000 to do one, so you
Mhm.
can have your first doing it in a chaperoned environment where
Yeah.
it's
Yes. Which is important. Yeah.
this is good. But
Yeah.
then after that,
Yeah.
then you can say, well, I can't afford the 1,000. Can you order it from a compounding pharmacy?
Yeah.
And the compounding pharmacist can guide you on dosing.
Beautiful. Okay. I love it.
The other sensitivities, like sound sensitivity, which you'll see
Like,
because you don't have the energy to filter out the 98% of static from
right.
what's salient.
Yeah.
Gabapentin, very good medication for that.
Okay.
I like gabapentin much more than Lyrica, and now
Okay.
one can be helpful when the other isn't.
Right.
And they're now both cheap. Lyrica used to be insanely expensive, but it went off patent now.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But I
Right.
find that gabapentin has less side effects, so I'm going to start with that. And
Okay.
that's very good for light sound sensitivity.
Okay.
What other, if you're looking at sensitivities to foods,
Mm-hmm.
the mast cell activation syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
that's discussed at length in my book, well, it's discussed in brief because I just need a simple thing.
Yep.
But you can ask me for an information sheet on mast cell activation syndrome.
Okay.
It'll talk about using quercetin, loratadine, which is Pepcid,
Yep.
Singulair, and a host of other things that can go ahead and settle down the
Mhm.
sensitivity.
Mm.
For food sensitivities, a technique called NAET. Go to the
Okay.
website, N like Nancy,
Uh-huh.
AET like Tom.
Okay.
So NAET.com, T like Tom, so it's NAET.com.
Mhm.
You'll find practitioners, thousands of them all around the world.
Mhm.
Most of them are not on the website, but the ones who do the most training are.
Yeah.
Very good. It's funny, when I first learned about that, there's this woman in town that I met, and I had horrible ragweed hay fever allergies. And I
Oh.
was miserable, sniffling and sneezing. And she said, I can knock that out in 20 minutes. I said, left, leave me alone. That voodoo is not going to help me. Being the all-knowing doctor, yeah. And one day I was especially miserable. She said, stop being a nitwit and let me treat you.
Uh-huh.
And 20 minutes later, my hay fever was gone, never came back.
Mm.
I was
Amazing.
impressed enough that I flew to Los Angeles to meet the woman who developed the technique.
Yeah.
She's an MD, PhD, licensed acupuncturist, chiropractor with no ego.
Yeah.
Interesting woman.
Yeah.
Um, and I ended up being the lead author on a study using it for autism, where
Mm.
23 of the 30 autistic kids were back in regular school,
Oh,
as opposed to 0 out of 30 in the control group
right.
after 1 year.
Yeah.
So there's so much that can be done for the sensitivities.
Right.
And what I discussed right here is just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But again, mold toxins in the more severe refractory cases,
Yeah.
Neil Nathan's book Toxic,
Okay.
or my book also in the chapter Sensitive to Everything,
Yeah.
will tell you everything you want to know and more about these things.
Amazing. All right. Now we touched on a little bit earlier about just chronic inflammation. I know that's people know about it, but they don't necessarily know about the impact or what to do about it. So
Inflammation, along with low energy, is the second
yes.
main trigger for pain.
Yeah.
And what you're looking at is inflammation is healthy. It's our body's
Mhm.
part of our immune system for
Yes.
defense and wound healing, and it's an
Yes.
important thing.
Right.
The problem is that we are out of balance, and we're too inflammatory in our bodies because of the white sugar, the white flour, a decrease in omega-3s and fish oils.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a host of other things. Our immune system, we don't know it, but
Yeah.
it is guided by our psyche.
Mhm.
It's funny, when I was one of the jobs I did in med school to pay my way through, is I was a nurse in Children's Hospital,
Mhm.
and that's how I paid my tuition and stuff,
Huh.
and rent. And when I studied, we rotated onto the burn unit. I asked my psych professor to teach me hypnosis so I could do the dressing changes with the children
Ah.
and have it be more comfortable.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned was that, if you know how you get a burn, you get a big blister.
Yes.
And I'm a butterfingers. It's a good reason I'm not a surgeon, and I would burn myself frequently.
Okay.
But after I did that, and if I got a burn, I just go into a quick state and I go, heal quickly, no injury, it's fine.
Yes.
Because the blister is the body's response to a perceived attack.
Exactly.
And you can let the psyche nerve stand down.
Yeah.
The skin will turn white and fall off because it's been killed by the burn, but no
Right.
blister.
Right.
And you'll see that our when I was your age, the media, the mantra for the advertising execs was sex sells. If you
Yes.
wanted to sell something, you had a pretty woman, a handsome guy, and sitting next
Right.
to the beer in the car, and people bought the beer in the car.
Mhm.
And the current mantra seems to be fear and divisiveness sells.
Oh boy, yes.
So what they want is everybody to hate each other and to be
Yes.
scared to death, because that's good for business.
Right. Bad
That's
for
my
pain though,
impression
right?
anyway. And that triggers a constant sense of pervasive
Yes.
unsafeness,
Absolutely. Oh,
which triggers changes in the dorsal vagal system,
yes.
in the sympathetic adrenaline nervous system, and your immune system is on constant attacking everything. It's a
Right.
non-directed, diffuse, non-focused threat, constant threat level. It
Right.
exhausts.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm glad you brought up the whole safety mechanism because I think safety is one of the most important aspects around working with. And so, safety and understanding how it works and safety understanding that this treatment is helpful.
Mhm.
Safety in knowledge is power too, right? So that's why I love all the work that you're doing. Then we can talk maybe a little bit about the gut-brain connection around all of this, really.
Okay. Well, you have neurotransmitters. that really direct. If you look at medications like Cymbalta, these others, they're affecting neurotransmitters. Most of the pain medications are. The AEDs certainly are. The antidepressants are. The anti-epileptic drugs, gabapentin, Lyrica, the things that are being modified for pain, or the AEDs. So we think about the brain as making all these brain chemicals. Yeah, what the gut makes dwarfs what the brain is making.
Exactly.
Is serotonin, dopamine, and the rest. So it's been called the second brain.
Right.
Which could be why we have gut instincts,
Yes, for sure.
our gut
For sure.
feelings.
Yeah.
So the impact on the gut biome, the bacteria, we have about 10 trillion healthy bacteria, most of us, in our large intestine, which is as many cells as there are in our body. Now, those numbers will vary depending on how you look, but this is if you have as many immigrants as there are locals.
Right.
And if you have good immigrants that are doing good things, they are a wonderful thing for the body.
Right.
But if we have bacteria that are pathogenic, that are unhealthy, they mess things up.
Right.
So our diet, all the antibiotics and the rest, they really mess with the biome. Good probiotics, I like ones that are pearl coated. So Pearl's Elite would be a very good one. Or just get kefir or get a live yogurt. Make your own yogurt, but get yogurt without sugar, because sugar feeds the bad bacteria.
Right.
If you have a lot of gas, but it doesn't have much smell, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. Most doctors, we have irritable bowel syndrome. What does that mean? It means you have gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. We don't know why, but we don't want to say we don't know why, so we'll call it irritable bowel syndrome.
Right.
So a large percent of those, very large percent, are going to be either fungal overgrowth, which doesn't exist because there's no test for it, and I can't see you. I'm invisible.
You must not be there.
That's the medical thought of it. We don't have a test for it, so it doesn't exist.
Right.
Oh, if you have gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, and the gas does not have much smell to it, you can fill up a weather balloon, but not much smell.
Right.
And especially if you have nasal congestion, sinusitis, I treat for the candida, and all of this goes away.
Yes.
And the pain gets less, and the energy improves, and the brain fog clears. And there's no test I would give a nickel for. There's plenty of tests for it, but I wouldn't give a nickel for any of them. Just if you have the symptoms, you treat with diflucan for 6 weeks. There's a nose spray that can be compounded. The book talks about the fun fatigue's fantastic. Shameless plug talks about all of that. So in terms of the gut biome, if you have what I call, remember the silent but deadlies from grade school?
Yes.
That sulfur smell. That's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or parasites.
Right.
Okay. And then that gets treated in a different way. And the book will go through all of that too. But then there's rifaximin, which is $2,500. It should be like 15, but they have managed to extend the patent through because they just hire a team of lawyers and we'll get that patent till 2090,
Right.
But anyway, I shouldn't say that. It's a good medication, but it's stupidly expensive. I'll go with neomycin or Cipro or Septra instead. I use berberine, like Berberine Med-X, to help restore balance along with a probiotic. But again, a good kefir, Kefir, it might be a much simpler, cheaper approach to begin with for all of this. So if you have the gut symptoms, but yes, if you're having a lot of the gut symptoms, then the eye and shine for infections and inflammation needs to be addressed. For inflammation, for pain. If you're looking for another thing, just where do I start with pain? There's a supplement called Curamin, not curcumin, but Curamin. It has been a pain relief miracle for people. 1 or 2 tablets 3 times a day. Give it 6 weeks to start working. The longer you have the pain, the longer it takes to kick in. Now, again, if you've had pain for 20 years, 6 weeks is still fine. Give it 6 weeks. If you have a local pain, like a knee or one joint, a topical comfrey called Trauma Plant can also help. But 90% of the time, I'm starting with a Curamin.
Okay. Oh, fantastic.
And that balances several inflammatory systems, the LOX system, the COX system, and it's, instead of side effects, you get side benefits.
I want to make sure
you can't take these with the medications you're taking for pain. The only exception would be Coumadin, which is a blood thinner where you can't take, your doctor's already told you can't add anything without getting it checked.
So that's good to to your doctor. Okay, about that one.
Don't
I
talk
want
to
to.
your doctor about it. Yeah, talk to your doctor about it. The doctor, I don't know.
Oh, that's true.
It's all
Sorry.
quackery because they haven't told me about it. Well,
Yes,
here's some
that is
research. I don't have time for that nonsense. It's all quackery. It's like, and I've not seen any studies, but here's the study. I've not seen any studies, you know. So,
so
yeah,
true.
you can talk to your doctor legally. Yes, talk to your doctor. But
Right.
well, but like, oh, hell if I know.
Right. Okay. Good point.
So, go, talk to your holistic doctor.
Talk to, yes, bravo. It is just so important to have, I think, both perspectives, really, because it's just made a much more well-rounded picture. And we are complex beings. Chronic pain is
Yeah,
complex.
yeah.
Speaking of complex, perfect
Mhm.
segue. Complex regional pain syndrome.
It's
Any
funny.
advice
I
you have?
remember the first time that I saw that, I was in my probably second year of practice.
Yeah.
This person had this wonderful sweet lady had her knee joint aspirated
Uh,
by a rheumatologist, and developed CRPS in her leg.
mm,
And she, I couldn't do anything. Most pain I was really good at, but
yeah.
and she just saw I'm getting it amputated. I said the pain will not go away. Don't
Right.
do that. She had it
Exactly.
amputated and she still had the pain.
Right.
And I would go from conference to conference, pain conference to pain conference. And you don't ask people on the podium. Most of them don't
Mm,
know. They're just shills for the drug company. The people
right.
who know are the ones in the audience that
Right.
are that are
Right.
doing the things. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say shills for the drug companies. They're esteemed professor with a focus on a specific medication,
Hmm.
that may or may not be helpful, but they're not going to know the bigger picture
Right.
in general. In my experience, some will. But I would ask around, and
Yeah.
nobody had a thing. And then about 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Mm,
that started to chip away. And then the low-dose naltrexone was really, really helpful. And then they found that the biphosphonates, the specific intravenous, that's for bone density for osteoporosis,
okay.
dramatically effective. And then all these different treatments.
Mm,
So the easiest thing, if you have CRPS, you can email me for the chapter from my book, Ketamine.
yeah.
You had
Okay.
this funny, you had the American approach for ketamine and the Australian. One was to give it very light, and the other one was keeping in coma for 3 days. But it was, yeah.
Wow.
But if you look at my book, Pain Free 123,
Yeah.
there's a chapter neuropathy and CRPS.
Okay.
If you ask me for the neuropathy chapter, I'm just going to give that without the
Yeah.
CRPS. But if you ask for the CRPS information sheet's probably more updated. Not
Okay.
because Pain
Okay.
Free is about over a decade old now.
Okay.
Um, but the CRPS information sheet, it will lay it out. Here's what you do.
Okay.
It's it's very treatable now. It's
Which is amazing because
awesome.
just the name of it, or at least the tagline that comes along with CRPS, the also known as the suicide disease, which is just awful.
It doesn't
You
have to
know,
be. It's treatable
no,
now.
exactly. Okay, that's fantastic.
RSD, CRPS. I don't think the name change added anything, so I tend to be a bit of curmudgeon. So
Right,
whether it's reflex sympathetic dystrophy or complex regional pain syndrome, one or two,
right.
it's whatever name you want to go by, it's now treatable.
Yeah, that's what matters, not what it's called exactly. We talked a little bit earlier about assessments, and I know there's a lot of assessments that are just hogwash, pardon the expression, but what are the ones that you would recommend just as far as understanding a little bit about what's going on in their body nutritionally or
I
inflammatory?
hold the US patent for computerized doctor. I made it for people with CFS and fibromyalgia.
Okay.
Um, but an offshoot of that is called the Energy Analysis Program.
Okay.
So if you go to energyanalysis.program.com,
Okay.
there's a free quiz. It will assess the causes of low energy
Okay.
and let you know that you may need these nutrients. It sounds like there may be, addressing gut health,
Yeah.
optimizing thyroid or adrenal, and it'll go through the whole thing. It
Mhm.
can analyze the pertinent lab tests if you have those, as
Okay.
well as the symptoms. But the symptoms and labs tend to just reflect each other. So if
Right.
you don't need the labs. The labs are necessary for iron and B12 deficiency, but otherwise the symptoms will pretty much tell you the same thing.
Okay.
And it will go through all of that,
Right.
and give a more detail than most people want to know. So don't expect, just ease into it.
Right. Right. Little step by little step.
Yep.
Exactly.
And we used to charge $400 for that, but we told people that, if you couldn't afford, you could do it for free.
Right.
And 80% of people wrote back, I'm on Medicaid. I have no money. I'm
Right.
broke because of the disease. So my wife
Yeah.
and I decided to just make it free to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just there and it's no charge.
Oh, that's amazing.
So so it will assess. the main triggers for the low energy, which for most of people with pain, those are very important things.
Mm-hmm.
That's figure out, do you need oil, or do you need
Right.
transmission fluid, or what are you needing?
Right. Especially
And
on the
if
road
you're
to recovery, right? You just need that energy, that little extra bit of energy to at least give you enough drive to
well,
do the work.
to make the pain go away.
Right. And that, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, absolutely.
And again, these processes tend to cascade.
Yeah.
The viral infection will trigger hypothalamic suppression, which suppresses sleep, which
Right.
then raises substance P, which also causes you have the hormonal dysfunctions.
Right.
So it's not, by the time you get to this point, it's really a single bullet thing. It's usually a mix of things, dominoes that have fallen over, that
Right.
need to be put back in place, and then
Right.
everything works.
Yeah. No, you're so well said. I think that's the chronic pain experience in general. There's just so many pieces to it.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you that I know is specifically for two people in my community, and I know there's probably more. But so now that the world is starting to open up a little bit more post COVID, surgeries are starting to come back into place. Is there any quick advice that you could give someone who might be heading into surgery relatively soon that is suffering from fibro, chronic fatigue, long haul? Is there something that they could do just on the quick to help them prepare for surgery?
Well, here's the thing. Again, the how people do a surgery often has to do with whether the surgery is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Surgery done for the right reasons, people tend to recover very well.
Mm-hmm.
Surgery done for the wrong reasons, you get failed
Right.
back syndrome, and failed
Yes,
back
yes,
surgery, and
yes.
the rest.
Yeah.
So a couple things. Number one, your ability to heal from the surgery is very dependent on your having the nutrients you need. Take the multivitamin
Right.
beforehand. And after the surgery, the Curamin, and for fish oil, I recommend Vectomega, because one pill replaces 8 big
Okay.
fish oil pills. I tend to see what I can do to collapse, so people aren't taking handfuls of pills all day.
Right.
So you don't want to take the fish oil before surgery because it's a blood thinner. But
Okay.
3 days after surgery,
Okay.
it'll help settle down the inflammation. Same with the Curamin. I begin that a couple days after surgery. But here's the big thing. Remember, I talked about how the brain is directing
Mm-hmm.
the immune system to a large degree.
Right.
If there's a perceived threat, like somebody cutting into your body,
Yes.
the immune system is going, whoa,
Right.
and the troops are all sent there. It doesn't know that scalpel from an infection
Right.
unless you tell it.
Exactly.
So, when I had a cracked, molar tooth, and they had to pull it out, the oral surgeon was telling, "Oh, you're going to be out of commission for a week," and the whole thing, and
Yeah.
because of the roots. And
Yeah.
in this chair, I just put myself in a quick hypnotic state.
Mm-hmm.
I just let my psyche what's coming is friend. These are friends. This is
Right.
just here to help us to do maintenance. Let it, leave it alone. It's fine.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
these are friends. I had no inflammation. I had no
Wow.
pain. I was back
Yeah.
to work an hour later.
Right. Wow.
The
Good
same
job.
when the implant went in.
Yeah.
So you'll find with the surgery, and you can start to do it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And you do whatever, meditation or prayer,
Yeah.
or listening to music, or being
Right.
in nature, whatever gets you into that kind of quiet, centered space
Yeah.
where
The breath.
breathe and
Right.
let go.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you access the part of the psyche that can do that, and
Right.
let it know what's coming is just for good. Welcome it in.
Right. Welcome to
This is
safety.
good.
And yeah, find the words that bring.
That this
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Find your
Beautiful.
words that work best for you. But
Yeah.
then when you're getting ready to be wheeled, when you're in the pre-op room,
Yeah.
and before they anesthetize you, but just go in, just at that time, just go into that state
Yeah.
and say that what's coming is good. This is
Yes.
welcome it. This is just
Yes.
help for us. Just
Right.
let it be. It's fine. This is helpful. Just use whatever language.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
uh, Use it, positive words like "this is helpful" is better.
Yes.
It tends to work better than negative, like "not
Yeah.
harmful." Your body will
Yes.
just feel harmful.
Right.
Helpful, friendly,
Yes.
welcome,
Yes.
stand down. It's fine. This kind of language,
Right.
you will heal much more quickly from the surgery.
I agree. And the whole mind body connection, I think, it applies to everything. It applies to pre-surgery. It applies to healing. It's understanding that your body is really good at healing,
Oh, it knows
understanding
exactly
how,
what it's doing.
right, how pain is an alarm system and how anxiety and inflammation are really there for a purpose. We just need to tap into them and give them the right
Yes.
support.
And yeah, and when your brain is flipped into, there's the adrenaline part, there's a calming parasympathetic part, and there's a
Right.
third part, the dorsal vagal.
Yeah.
There's different pieces,
Right.
and those systems can go out of balance. We get
Hmm.
stuck in the adrenaline part, so the adrenaline part keeps exhausting, and then
Yes.
you're going, and then it exhausts, and it goes back
Uh,
and forth.
yeah.
For those of you with a lot of sensitivities, especially, or
Right.
CFS and fibromyalgia,
Yeah.
um, resetting the system. There's two techniques. For those of you who are more, you like things like the yoga, you like
Mhm.
things that are a little more spiritual new agey, you like that languaging,
Yeah.
um, then the dynamic neural retraining system.
Aha.
So look up D like David, NRS, and Annie Hopper. She's the developer.
Okay.
It's a coursework you do at home. They have coaching. I highly recommend it too, but it's just a CD set that you can get it do at home, or
Yeah.
DVD set actually.
Okay.
Um, for those of you who have prefer more scientific, less woo-woo kind of
Yes.
languaging, ANS Rewire. So you
And
look up A and like Nancy, S like
mhm,
Sam, Rewire,
mhm.
and Dan Neufer. I'm mispronouncing his name, Neuffer.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of people find that one easier because
Mhm. Okay.
it takes 2 months at an hour a day to
Right.
start working.
Okay.
It's not an immediate, but the effects are often dramatic and without even the medications needed.
Right.
But the
Oh.
other thing too, go in when you're in that quiet space and
Mhm.
ask your psyche
Mhm.
go from a place of unconditional love,
Mhm. Mhm.
heart-centered if you want, and
Absolutely.
look to find all the parts of yourself and
Yes.
let them share their feelings.
Yeah.
The pain is sometimes there to distract you from feelings.
Right.
And it may be feelings about something that seems silly now.
Mhm.
Like, well, I was 7 years old and little Johnny pushed me off the swing and
Right.
I felt inadequate. And now you're 87, you've had pain for 8 decades.
Yeah.
And you realize I'm angry with that and I'm hurt and I feel whatever you feel, fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And your body has been giving you pain to distract you. You say, I've been in horrible pain for 8 decades to distract me from that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not a conscious thing. It's not, it has its own sense, but
Right.
it's not the thing. So go and find everything you
Yeah.
feel it, and let go of it. There's a book I wrote, 3 Steps to Happiness, Healing
Yeah.
Through Joy, which it's a very, get the ebook, not the paper book. It's funny.
Mm.
I found them on Amazon like for $300 because I just did a series of 6,000 for my
Yeah.
patients and they were gone. So they're now available for $10 again on Kindle.
Okay.
Get the Kindle book.
Okay.
And it's very short, simple. It will take you through this process, but do the ANS rewire, do dynamic neural retraining system, one of those two. Go on the
Okay.
websites, see which
Yeah.
one feels
Feels right.
language
Yeah.
is right to you.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's just an example of, in patient-centered care, right? Where you're involving the chronic pain warrior, client,
Mhm.
patient, whatever you want to call them, to help make the decisions themselves.
Yeah,
So,
you're not a victim. You don't
yeah,
have to be a warrior. There's nothing to fight.
you're right. Right.
It's okay to stand down.
Mm-hmm,
You have
mm-hmm.
been worrying enough,
Right.
and
Yes.
you're not a victim.
Right.
And and I'm not saying this to just say to drop your victimization. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
this because so critical
Mm-hmm.
in chronic pain and these illnesses is to be clear about your boundaries
Right.
so you're not a victim. And I'm going to tell you a simple way to be clear about what your boundaries are.
Okay.
Your brain has no idea who you are.
Mm-hmm.
The brain is a product of your programming that everybody gave you what you do to make them happy, be a good boy or girl. Your feelings know what's authentic to you.
Mm-hmm.
If something feels bad to you, say no. If you're not going
Mm-hmm.
to get arrested or homeless,
Right.
say no.
Yep.
And if your brain is going, well, if I don't do it, who's going to?
Yeah.
You'll find. But if you hook up with an energy vampire,
Yeah.
they're going to go, oh, if not for you, I don't know how do I do. And
Right.
it's like, and nobody else could help me. The hooks go in,
Yeah.
and the different things, and then
Yeah.
they suck you dry and barf up all their emotional toxic dump on you. And there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, while your gut is saying run and your brain is buying into, well, somebody got to help them, mommy, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. While
Yeah.
your brain's doing that, as soon as you notice your gut is going, no,
Telling you
it doesn't
something.
feel good.
Right.
That's the language of your psyche. It doesn't feel good. The
Mm-hmm.
answer is no. And a
Mm-hmm.
person goes, but if not you, my doctor said I can't take on any more of these things. Or
Mm-hmm.
the doctor said,
Mm-hmm.
I am a doctor. Okay, I said that.
Yeah.
If it
Yeah.
feels bad, say no.
Right.
Okay. And then if they keep going, are you saying I shouldn't listen to my doctor? You want me to die? And then they'll usually back off and
Oh
find an
yeah.
easier prey.
Yeah.
Um, but again, learn to say no to things that feel bad, and you can say
Right.
yes to things that feel good.
Yeah.
That's called setting boundaries.
Right.
You'll find it works very well. Now,
Yeah.
again, don't do anything that hurts anybody else,
Yeah.
and see how things work out for you. That will make
Right.
sure that your tuning is
Yeah.
safe and adequate.
Yeah.
It may feel good to take a revolver and kill those bastards who need killing. Don't.
Right, right. Well, the power of tuning in, really, there's a lot. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about just, your self-awareness and
Yes,
tuning into the emotions and feelings that you have.
they're important,
Fantastic. Right.
but
Well,
they're authentic.
yeah, and authentic, absolutely. And that's it's sad how far away removed from that sometimes we get when you live a life with
We're a
pain, right?
masculine-dominated society. It's funny in medicine, even though
Yes.
half of the people are females now, it's a masculine-dominated temple. Look at the word hysteria,
Mm-hmm.
which is a medical word. It
Mm-hmm.
comes from hystero, which is Latin for uterus.
Right. Right.
If, in case you're wondering if we're still medically male-dominated, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yes, we are.
Yes, boy, we could talk about this for hours, but or maybe 6 other podcasts. But I just want to make sure, just to create an opportunity. Is there anything we missed? Anything you feel that's really important to?
And a whole lot of things, but you have enough to get yourself started.
Yeah,
Start with the vitamin powder, the energy revitalization system. Start with the Curamin.
yeah,
Give those things 6 weeks. That's just a small piece, but it's a
okay,
good foundation piece.
okay,
Smart energy system and HRG 80, ginseng, if you have the fatigue with it. If you have the PTSD kind of a history,
yes,
the trauma, the
yes,
emotional trauma,
yes,
do the ANS rewire or the dynamic neural retraining system.
okay,
So these are simple things you can do in the beginning.
right,
And then shameless plug, but I'll make my buck.
mm-hmm.
Dynamic Get From Fatigue Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's my book. That's one over my shoulder there. Yes,
yeah,
yes, I'll make my dollar. If that upsets you, I'll give it to charity. Over half my income goes to charity, by the way. So
right, right,
it's the um, and I make less than most doctors do, although I hope to
right,
make more. Nothing wrong
yeah,
with money. It's okay.
yeah,
But the book will walk you through it.
right,
And the whole big section on pain.
mm-hmm.
And I'll go through each kind of pain. And the book talks about restoring energy, which on a physical level is the key. Balancing inflammation, restoring energy
Yeah,
are the two keys to pain relief. Those are the
right,
two biggest ones on
yeah,
a body level. On the mind level, we talk about
yes,
the other things.
right,
And
fantastic,
structural. And okay.
good, beautiful.
We talked about the
There's
pieces.
there's so many details. Okay, so first of all, thank you. I think what's really important about the messaging for today is there are a lot of things. There's options out there. There is hope, right? I think it's an important message to end off on.
Pain is optional.
Right, right.
I virtually the one pain that I've seen that I still, well, now I would probably have an answer. There's one lady who had metastatic bone cancer.
Mm,
That was in horrible pain. This is 35 years ago.
yeah,
That I couldn't get pain free, but now I would probably get her the ketamine,
yeah,
and that would probably help. It's it's very rare. There's a few isolated things where the nerves have an entrapment and they're being pinched
yeah,
that they need to surgically be decompressed.
yeah.
But most pain is treatable.
Right. And I know this actually brings up a lot of emotions for our community. So there's going to be a lot of people who, I mean, I even used the word heal the other day in a meditation. And I know that that was really difficult for some people because they're like, no, hey, this is degenerative. I have no
Yes.
healing capacity, which
Well, let
makes
me
me so
just note
sad.
this. Trust your instincts. If your gut feeling
Yeah.
is that what I'm saying doesn't fit for you,
Yeah.
then just please, like a shoe that doesn't fit, just discard it.
Yeah, exactly. You
It's
pick
not
and
for you.
choose from the information that you're gaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if what I'm saying resonates with you and you go like, this feels okay, I'd like to explore this,
Yeah.
then please take it, make it yours,
Exactly.
run with it.
Exactly. Good.
Mhm.
I think that's a fantastic way to end off. A very, very big thank you for reaching out, for being a part of this podcast, and for all the work that you do. I really
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
There's no sacrifice in it.
Right.
I do this because it's the most fun thing in the world for me to do.
Oh, that's amazing. And me too, actually, truly.
Yeah.
So, is there a website? I know you've given me lots of places for people to visit.
For information,
Yep.
especially for CFS and fibromyalgia,
Yep.
vitality101.com.
Okay. Good.
For supplements that I mentioned,
Mhm.
and fatigue. So E, N like Nancy, D like David, fatigue.com.
Okay.
For overall information to really, if you want to do a deeper dive, and even if you have brain fog, the book From Fatigue to Fantastic, get the blue cover edition. They have brain fog friendly summaries, so you can, in 1 minute, you can get the synopsis of the chapter and then just kind of skim through. Because I know a lot of you will have brain fog, and it's like, how am I going to do a 100,000 word book?
Right.
It's because you can skim through and then do a deeper dive. And do a deeper dive.
Right.
And take it at your own speed. For that, I would get the paperback book because it's easier for reference text.
Okay. Sounds good.
This is what that is.
Right.
Those simple things. And then again, if you want the long COVID or CFS fibromyalgia or orthostatic intolerance, infertility, CRPS information sheets, just email me. Let me know which one you want. If you get close to describing it, I'll know what to send you. These are free, and I'll send you information on how to get a good start and just to move forward with that.
Perfect. I will be personally emailing you too, just to get some of this information as well.
I welcome it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And feel free for all the information. It says copyright. This is only if it's being sold.
Okay.
But you're welcome to give the information away.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, because with inside my membership community, that's what we're all about, is learning and growing together.
If you're not charging the members for the information, they can charge them to be in the community.
Yeah.
But if you're giving the information for free.
Yeah.
But you can't put it in a book and sell the book. My publisher gets upset.
No, for sure. For sure. Oh no, and I promise not to include anything that's not.
No. Feel free to include it all.
Okay.
If you're giving it away.
Well, would you ever want to come back on our little podcast sometime?
I'll check back in about 18 months.
Okay, sounds good. All right. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your time and all the research you're doing, all the help you're giving to people.
Dina, everybody, it's truly been a joy and a pleasure. And again, find the things that feel good to you, that resonate with you. Run with those. The rest, just let it go.
Sounds good to me. All righty. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for being here and for listening in. By you being here today, it states loud and clear that you are either curious about learning more about your pain, or you are ready to truly shift and become the expert on your own pain. Either way, we've opened our doors to the Change Pain Academy. The Academy is a space to radically shift your understanding of pain so that you can be one of the key stakeholders at the decision-making table. It's also a space to support you as you implement new skills and behaviors to change the pain so that you can get back to a life well lived. And the best part? We do all of this inside an incredibly supportive community where we learn, grow, and celebrate wins together. Unsure if you're ready yet? Test your readiness to change your pain and learn valuable next steps with our quiz at www.pain2possibilities.com/chronic pain quiz. Or for more information, go to pain2possibilities.com.